Welcome to Truth and Transcendence. You can find all our other episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. Today, I'm delighted to welcome a gentleman whose name I will try not to massacre, which is Niels Vantzuriel. And Niels is a Rite of Passage facilitator who has spent over a decade guiding women into Ireland's wild landscapes and forgotten sacred sites. Far from tourist paths, he leads profound spiritual ceremonies that help women navigate life transitions, step into empowerment, and embrace the next chapter of their lives. So beautiful, unique, very, very niche. You can find Niels and his work on adventuresinquietplaces.info, and that link will be in the show notes. So Niels, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Catherine. I'm looking forward to this.
Excellent. Yeah, me too. I've been looking forward to it. One of the things we talked about in the pre-call, we were kind of chatting about the energy that you bring to this work and your presence, and we kind of connected with the notion of father energy, which is something that you are very much working with. Before we kind of segue into talking about how that manifests in your retreats, can I ask you a few things about your story and your journey in relation to father energy?
Let's go for it. It didn't come natural at all. I was born and raised in a family, and that abandoned me in a very charming, peculiar way, but really ungrounded. And that was something that I noticed from the youngest age, that I had certain gifts because of that upbringing, being very receptive, very empathetic. But at the same time, I was also understanding that I was missing quite a lot. I just couldn't quite put my finger on it. And this is just the lack of role models.
Yeah.
Nothing bad for my family. As an example, I had the best mother that I could have possibly wanted. She did everything. She was a fantastic role model figure in the feminine for me. But we did come to a conclusion, and she's in complete agreement. She could never be a father. It's just a different energy that she wasn't able to bring. So that was something that I had to figure out on myself, and that became a little bit of a life story for me. But it certainly didn't come naturally. Let me rephrase that. I wasn't born into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So were you a single parent family? Was your father absent?
Yeah, yeah. We were one of the very first in our environment. A lot of shame, a lot of poverty, all of that. But again, it also bends you in a very certain charming way. You just get to what you hope to later in life when you transition from personality to persona, from this is me to a wider let life flow through you, that you have a nice balance between masculine and feminine. And that feminine aspect usually comes later for men in life. If culture, in my view, is nice and balanced, and that part comes later in life. I just did it first, and then I just did it flipped around, um, and that really started to come into focus with the relationship that I have now for the last 13 years with my romantic partner Elizabeth. She also works with me and the women that we take up into the mountains here. And she is a lady that is so highly connected to the spiritual world. She is off with the fairies, off with the angels all day, every day. Very high energies. I needed to be able to basically ground her down, ground her into physical reality. So even though I had made huge strides before meeting her, it was really within our relationship that everything was being put to the test. Going like, okay, show your bona fides, show your cojones. It's time to show up now. And so it's trial through error, trial through fire.
But that's fascinating how you kind of did the journey the other way around from most men. I think you're right. For most men, the discovery of the mother energy comes later. Although, of course, all men in a healthy situation do have that early bonding with the mother as a baby and a young child, don't they? But it sounds like for you, that kind of blossomed a lot further into your late childhood and adolescence. Can you remember when you first realized that while that mother energy was really wonderful for you, that there was something else that you were looking for? Can you remember when you first noticed that?
Oh yeah, the moment that you hit puberty, and everybody sees you as a girl. Now that isn't happening for me anymore, but being recognized everywhere from just, oh, you're a girl. No, I'm not. At that moment, a bell started to ring for me, going like, okay, I'm messing something up somewhere. Now, still very young, and when we talk puberty for men, as far as I've understood it, um, our brain doesn't develop until we're fully developed until we're 27. By that time, it is honestly truly done, which is quite a longer track than women usually have. So I was even half fully cognitively formed, let alone emotionally formed. So I couldn't quite put my finger on exactly what was wrong. I just put it to an ungrounded. But it took me quite a while to actually get to the point. What does that ungroundedness actually mean? It has a lot to do with, in any situation, basically being the oak and being just literally feet on the ground, reality first, um, and being balanced. No matter come high hell or high water, being balanced so that the people around you, they can lose their heads, but they always have a place that they can come back to. So you literally give the framework, you give the perimeter, you give the place that they can find refuge, and within that, everybody else, including yourself, can let their creativity and their creative life force just explode. And I found that eventually, once I got the hang of it, to come very naturally.
Yes. So you're in a unique position to be able to appreciate the value of that being the oak, having experienced not being the oak. And you say everyone thought you were a girl. I found it hard to believe people actually thought you were a girl. But do you mean that they thought you were kind of soft and gentle and
Nope,
no?
nope, a girl. The beard came in a bit late.
I think perhaps you were in a different culture from you must have been in another country, were you? Which country were you living in?
I was born and raised in Holland. Spent a good little bit in Dubai before Dubai became what it is now. So I remember it as a desert with one skyscraper only. So this is pre Iraq War One, pre that. Then came back to Holland again. Did a lot of traveling, but grew up in Holland. Ended up in all places in Ireland, simply because I met my girl Elizabeth. She's Irish, so that's how I crossed the pond, and basically have not moved in the last 13 years because I am supposed to be here.
Well, why would you want to leave beautiful Ireland? I mean, those who are watching this can see a beautiful vista behind you. And I think all over the world, people have heard, the legends of the beautiful mountains and lakes and rivers. But I'm really curious. So you realized there was something that you wanted to develop. You realized it was something to do with being grounded. You realized you had this very strong feminine aspect well developed. How did you then find the father energy and develop it in yourself? Answers on a postcard.
No worries. We can
It's
do
a
this
big
bullet
question.
points. 10 to 15 words per bullet point. No worries. We got this. I'll go into one specific point that happened for me, which was an iboga ceremony, which is a psychedelic from Africa. But apart from that, it was pure consistency of walking the land of Ireland through rain, through everything that this land throws at you, because it's not always sunshine and rainbows here. It is not. And as somebody who lives in Wales, I think you can really truly appreciate that. We've got some of the same weather. But let's start with the iboga. The iboga is a ceremony of a psychedelic root that I did. The root comes out of Africa, and I liken it to the male equivalent of the feminine or mother energy that ayahuasca brings. So maybe many of your listeners are aware of ayahuasca. It's really grown in popularity in the last 20 odd years, although I see a small dip maybe in the last 5 years after COVID. I'm seeing a small dip in popularity, but it's still very much so in the zeitgeist. And ayahuasca is a plant medicine from South America. It's a concoction between two different plants that creates deep, deep psychedelic experiences. Not just any old visuals, but deep lessons that those visuals bring, including meeting Mother Ayahuasca. And she has, although a strict and um, very maternal energy, it is very specifically uh, feminine energy. There are some tribes that actually explore her as a masculine figure, but the vast majority seem to meet her as feminine. Iboga is the African male equivalent, also highly psychedelic, also very hard hitting, and this has a father energy. Now, I was warned going into this. One, look at my skin. This is pale Anglo, this is Saxon skin. This is not your root. This is not your plant medicine. If you want to do this, you have to prepare. You have to do this in a correct ceremonial way, and you have to prepare. And I took that very seriously, understanding, okay, if this is going to be on that same level as ayahuasca, I need to prepare. So I did that for a year. Anything from deep, deep cleanses to getting into the spiritual history of the plant, how the locals in West Africa use it, what can be expected, how do you deal with the come down, all of that. So I prepared for a year and I took a hero dose. That was stupid. That was very stupid. I was knocked on my. I'm not quite sure if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Swear or I was knocked on my arse. I was in bed for 7 days. 3 of them not able to get out of bed at all, and 7 days before I was somewhat back to the land of the living. It was heavy, very heavy. No psychedelic visions for me, no beautiful interaction with the goddess or the god. No, it was very strict. Yeah, you are still not ready. That's humbling. That's very, very humbling. And the message that I got from that was, okay, you want to play? You really want to dabble in these kind of energies? You still have to step it up. You're still not there. Mind you, I've been playing in spiritual world for over 20 years by this time. And that sat at the feet of the some of the most well-known spiritual figures and swamis and gurus in the world. This thing just knocked me for six. I'm going, nope, back into humble mode with you. You're not ready. And but that energy that it also left me with, that flavor, was unwavering. Very humble, but absolutely unwavering in its strength. And I've tried as best as I could to use that as somewhat of a template, somewhat of a mirror of the energy that I try to bring to all my work now. It was very anchoring, very grounding. It was very earthy plant, but so grounding. Again, I couldn't get out of my bed. But that was an absolute eye opener for me. Now, bringing that energy into my relationship made the relationship absolutely better. And then the next thing that I would say, if we're still talking about father energy, is consistency. Showing up day after day, again and again, going out into the wild here, going out into nature. Doesn't matter how pissing rain it is, because summer here is fantastic. Summer in Ireland is heaven on earth, but you also have winter. And winter here, especially where we are located on a peninsula that's known as the Beara Peninsula. And Beara is home to the kayak of Beara, also known as the old hag or the goddess of winter, the goddess of storms. This is her home turf. And she likes to play here, meaning winter here is tough. It pisses rain here so much. The place of the highest amount of wind in Europe, so the most consistent amount of wind in Europe, is about 10 miles from my house. So, bad weather here still showing up every single day. And even though I am not from this land, and it took me a little while to get traction from the land, again, not my blood, the act of consistency and showing up humbly, it's almost like a lover's touch, just being there. Literally just being there over and over and over again, just at the bend of a river, just at a standing stone that everybody seems to have forgotten. That gave me both a way into the landscape itself, and it formed me even more into what I was growing into, I would say. Long-winded answer, but there you have it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And in amongst your story, you also hint at the fact that there are many other things that you did along the way that supported you. And I really was fascinated that you spent an entire year preparing for the iboga ceremony. I think that's an incredibly valuable reminder for all of us to not just say, great, I can be on a plane on Friday afternoon, I'll take the drug Saturday morning, and I'll be back at work on Tuesday, which is sometimes in our culture, we think that's the way that it works, but it doesn't.
I
So
have a saying.
go
I'll
on.
quickly hop in there. I have a saying about this: you cannot microwave the soul. There are certain things in our human experience that just cannot be rushed. And things like dealing with psychedelics, um, things like doing deep, deep ceremony, we like to call them rites of passage. They take time. If you want to do it bloody well, right. Also, there is this argument about unearned power, which which some psychedelic ceremonies can do. And if you're not ready for that power, and again, after a year of actually doing the work, I was still not ready. Um, if you get that power, if you are shown that power, and you are indeed not ready, it can seriously mess you up. Um, just a word of caution here. In general, people go into spirituality going, it's almost like a like either trying to find themselves again, or it's a very la-di-da attitude that people can go into spirituality with, not understanding that there is actual power in this kind of stuff, that you're dabbling with things that we not fully understand. Even the shamans in the tribes that have a living tradition, they have a really good ideas that we have lost, but they're still not quite sure about what we are actually dealing with. If you just hop into this and hop into an ayahuasca ceremony, there are the chances, or any kind of psychedelic or deep spiritual work, there are the chances that things go wrong. People do go crazy. Either they were unstable to begin with, or they're just not able to deal with the power. It's not a small thing that you're dabbling with here. Just wanted to put that in there.
Well, thank you. I remember that a person I met years and years ago when I was working in a company, and I went on a sales appointment to sell our services to somebody, and there was this chap in a suit, proper decision maker, etc. After we met, he found out more about our organization, left his job, and came to work with us. And he then shared with me that on that day that he met me was the day that the 5-week acid trip he'd been on finished. He took one tab and he was on this trip for 5 weeks. And then he met me and realized there was a different energy there, because our organization was highly spiritual. Left, and it broke it. I didn't do anything. It broke it, and he came and worked with us. But he told me afterwards that if that hadn't happened, he could have been a goner. He was coming apart. And that was and I thought, oh my, I hadn't, he looked fine in a suit, short hair, tie.
High functioning, yeah.
High functioning, completely off his face person. So no, I totally get what you said. I think that applies as well to things where drugs are not involved. all sorts of different things we can do, tantra, meditation, all these different things we can do, not to underestimate the power of it.
Absolutely. At the same time, also not running away from it. Um, there is also such a thing as false humility and keeping yourself small. There will be a time, if you are in this world, that you will start to accumulate power. Now, the way that I identify that word power is, do you have the influence to, or do you have the potential to influence other people in their lives, either for good or for bad? And it's the moment that you figure out, I can help this person, but I can also hurt this person. Now you've understood that you actually have power. Now some real soul searching will need to come out, because by this time, if there are any kinks left inside of you of any kind of nature, mental, spiritual, sexual, it will come out. It will come out. This is a very fraught. Is that the English word? It's a knife's edge kind of a journey, and you can fall off really quickly.
Yeah.
And by God, I am not perfect, but you do learn.
Yeah, and you're working on it as you go, and as as you're speaking, you bring a kind of a thoughtfulness and a reflection in the way that you're speaking, and that speaks quite loudly as well, and I think in the spiritual world, sometimes people are very emphatic and certain and this, and sometimes that's a sign that they're not really connected to their spirituality. They're connected to an idea, which
Oh, you just touched upon something, didn't you? Just that you're connected to an idea. I'll try to put something in there very quickly. This has to do, as far as I'm concerned, as well, a lot with just living on the internet nowadays. People are so connected to their screens. They are so connected to living online that the actual experiences that we still have in the outside world are starting to dwindle. But we are fully entranced with that little screen in front of our face. And as a trance worker, I can tell you that thing is a hypnotic device. It absolutely is. If you want to go really woo woo, it's a black mirror. I'll just leave that there. But we start to conflate the experiences that we read on the internet, the truisms that seem to float around in the trends, and the angers on the internet with our own personal experience, even though our experience might not even reflect that. We start to read into that. We are being married to an idea, which could even be an egregore. Again, a whole different subject. I'm just pointing this out. There was a mystic slash philosopher living just down the road from me. He will be recognized in the next 20 to 30 years as one of the greats from Ireland. He's been gone now for 10, 20 years. His name is John Moriarty. He had a fantastic phrase. John said, I've hurt more people from my heights than I ever did from my lows. There's so much in that sentence, but I'll just leave it there.
Thank you. Very powerful. Fascinating. Fascinating. And so something else I find interesting is, do you think that your grounding in the feminine energy and the mother energy actually had a positive effect on your ability to recognize and ground the father energy? Because that's your unique journey, isn't it? Other men, not with that unique journey, what effect do you think that had, that you had that initial grounding, and then when you engaged with the father energy, you started working with that? Do you think it helped? Do you think it
Yeah. Really good questions. One that I actually have to think about. And with as all good questions, my answer might change in the future. But the very first instinct that I have, and I see this as layers, reality has layers. I'm an archaeologist by trade. I'm a hypnotist and an archaeologist. So I dig in layers into what's beneath the surface. And I've recognized that reality has layers. Sometimes those layers are contradicting. So I might be contradicting to myself. And it's, for me, a sign of a healthy human being, that they can dance within those paradoxes, that it's okay, and that you don't, I'm hypercritical about myself. It's okay to dance with the paradox. So the story that I'm going to tell you now is looking back, how incredibly necessary the masculine is. Um, it is only now that if I were to put myself back into that very young lad, full on in his emotions and his feelings and intuitions and all of that, understanding, if I would just have added a little bit of structure, a little bit more of groundedness in my personality, how much further, how much quicker I would have gone, so much further. So it's really a deep appreciation of what the masculine brings, not as something that is more than, but absolutely as a unmistakable quality that is necessary within literally all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Do bring this to the ladies that I work with. We mainly work on pulling through the next version of themselves, and we really, really focus on the intense femininity that they bring. Oftentimes, because they are in the corporate world, there's a very deep masculine push energy that they're used to. They're completely burned out of that shit, and they don't want it anymore. But there are still very deep aspects before we go to the feminine energy that we tackle. What does it feel like when you actually set your boundaries and you patrol those boundaries? When you say no to that fucker of a boss that needs to be said no to? When you hold your boundary with your kids or with your friends? What does that feel like? And you actually start to live from that place, from that strength. Also with yourself. When are you telling yourself bullcrap? Be honest about that. What does it feel like when you allow things that you know that you shouldn't allow in habits, in dealing with people, in I'll doom scroll for another half hour. It's fine. It's Saturday night. What, get in touch with that masculine energy of yourself. Now, for me, when we work with the ladies, it's at least 6 to 8 days in person. Um, there is a lot of guiding, but there's never telling them of what they need to do. I've got a lot of tools that I can share, and ways that I can show you how your mind could work even better. But honestly, I'm 43. What am I going to tell a 65 or 70-year-old woman that comes to me about how she needs to live her life? She's in a completely different um, age range, in a different role in her life, in a different role within her tribe. She is in her elder era, maybe in her villain era. It's not in my it's not my duty to tell a woman like that what she needs to do. What it is my role, and this is agreed upon beforehand, I can give you the space, the safety, the feeling deeply seen, feeling deeply cherished, feeling oh so beautiful and feminine, so that gives you the space, the time, and that container that you can go really, really deep.
That was lovely. And I think that's something that women need. They need those spaces where they can just completely relax. And of course, you're absolutely right. In order to have those spaces, there needs to be some structure in place.
Yeah. Um, Somewhat mature woman, let's say that she was easily 65 plus, did confide to me at a moment ago, I did this all by myself. She did her whole life by herself. She came to me, she goes, I think I need a man. For this, for the next step, and it doesn't have to be me. It can be just a friend, a part of the rites of passage that we make very clear is you have a preparation phase, then you have the going down into the darkness, the catabasis, the going to the other world. We do that in the thin places of our end. And then you have an integration phase where you go out of it. And the integration phase, the way that our ancestors figured this out, was a place where you were seen by your tribe, where you were witnessed by your tribe. There's power in our witnessing. And the idea here is, if you come out of a rite of passage, out of a long ceremony where your goal was, I need to become a different person, a new personality, I need to become a different role player in my tribe, in my family, when I come out, it is oh so tempting to fall back in my old habits. It is oh so comfortable and familiar to be the old me. Now, if you have a witness, they will hold me to the new version of me. This is how the old peoples used to do this. You went through your rite of passage. You are now an elder. You are now a hunter. You are now, and this one we still have, you are now a wife. We hold you to different duties and responsibilities. And with that, of course, there comes a lot of privileges as well. But we hold you to a new set of rules now. There's power in that. So we witness you through all of this as well. So that change that you put into place actually are able to stick. And that's something that you see so often nowadays within spirituality. Let me just bash the ayahuasca ceremonies, and I really don't mean anything badly towards the plant medicine or the culture behind it, or even Mother Ayahuasca itself. But what I am noticing is the following: it's become a little bit of a cottage industry where the demand is so large that the receiving side tries to keep up, and the people that are jumping into that void are not always the most scrupulous people. Meaning, you have your experience, which might be fantastic, world shattering. You have a whole new idea of how the cosmos works, and now you're on a plane back to America or Canada. Okay, integrate that. You're not going to. The quickest way for the mind to deal with such a earth-shattering experience, if there's not a deep integration process, again, you cannot microwave the soul, is to just think about, oh, that was a lovely dream, or that was a lovely time, but I'm sure I imagined things, or to just not give it roots, and your personality just comes back with a vengeance to portray itself even stronger than it did before, because it now feels threatened. So there is a lot to be said about the integration process of these kind of deep spiritual processes that we go through, these deep spiritual experiences. I see that oftentimes lacking.
I agree. I do see that as well. And in my work, I really emphasize the integration phase as well. I think often people think, well, the integration phase, you're just not really doing anything. You're just sort of sitting there doing nothing. But actually, that's not the case. But you can't microwave the soul is a great phrase. I absolutely I haven't heard that before. It's perfect for that. But you're very, very thorough in your work, and you're bringing that beautiful father energy, and these women are coming and working with you. Do you ever come across or get approached by men who want to develop more of that amazing balance between the mother energy and the father energy, which you've got? Like, you were born into the mother energy, and then later on you developed the father energy. That's a unique and really powerful blending. Do you ever get men approaching you, inquiring about how they might do that?
Yes. Now we are going to go into a little bit of spicy territory, and I'm going to keep it very PG-13. One of the tools that I use with that I work with, and it's only one, but it's quite transformational, is growth through pleasure, and teaching the women that I work with to get into contact with their own reward centers in their own head. That anytime that they show up as the new person that they want to be, that they need to be, that they know this is that larger being that I want to pull through, I'm showing up as her, automatically your reward systems in your own mind release a wave of pleasure. These are not just words, this is something that you feel viscerally. Now, I will leave it to the imagination of your audience what that might mean. Trust me that I do speak to the husband, the um, when you are the engaged partners of the women that I work with, but it's usually after they figure out, oh, what you can actually do with this. Then the talk starts to happen about, sure, you can do this, but if you just do this as a button that you want to push, sorry, but the magic just goes away. If you instead hold yourself as that container where somebody can actually feel so incredibly beautiful that you can look them in the eyes and you can and they can feel and sense from you that they see who you are as a woman and that they feel so deeply safe and cherished, that is the container where they can completely unravel. So if you push the button, then it's a fantastic experience. But so within that context, yes, the partners do come back on like, okay, show me. How do you do this? But and
Amazing.
for that, again, it's all presence. It's all presence. It really is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Beautiful. I mean, the thing you say about pleasure, I've had experiences where let's say I've attended a workshop or I've held a workshop or something where the energy has absolutely been incredible and it's been a wonderful experience, and the feeling of pleasure, it's not a sexual pleasure, it's a body pleasure, an emotional pleasure, a soul pleasure, is profound and deep and incredibly nourishing. And of course, I am then much more receptive to connection and responding to life and appreciating the wonder of the universe and all of those things. It's a natural thing. So I can see how that could work for these people, you know. And I imagine that these men, if they then embrace that then helps them to become more fully formed as a man. Would you say that's true?
Oh, you are so intuitive, right on the, you are hitting it right on the head there. So my ultimate goal and hope, and we really do not take any prisoners. The change or the phrase that I use is life changing, the way that it actually is supposed to be life changing. We've all seen the word life changing being watered down to mean absolutely nothing nowadays. We have a chocolatier in our little town that has life changing chocolate. Now his chocolate is really good, but I'm just saying life changing is has been watered down. But I really do mean the work that we do, if you fully commit to it, is life changing. What we aim for the ladies that work with us is that you are so completely in your natural element, your feminine. You are so open, so receptive, that creativity flows through you so naturally. If you are able to inhabit that, life starts to treat you differently. People around you are starting to treat you differently. The house calms down. Your work starts to open up in completely different ways. It is so beautiful to see a woman actually step into that. What now happens to the relationship with her masculine partner? If she is able to just be so in flow and feel so safe and feel so beautiful in her life and in her daily interactions, it is so easy for you to actually step into your masculine. If you are able to just give her a look and she feels amazing because just that look, what does that do for your interaction and your dynamic? Yeah, it's you're spot on. It does a lot for your relationship if you allow it.
Amazing. Wow. Well, let's remind people where they can find you, which is adventuresinquietplaces.info. This has been absolutely fascinating, Niels. I've so enjoyed this conversation. We've actually talked about a lot, and I just having talked to you today, I feel like we could talk for weeks and weeks, and it would just be still fascinating. Has there been, for you in this conversation, has there been a favorite part of our conversation today?
I don't often talk about the iboga part. Um, it's good to be reminded of how absolutely slapped I was coming out of that and how humbling. It's the same thing. It's not the same thing, but that reminds me when a woman fully transforms in front of your eyes, and this can actually happen. It oftentimes happens. Change can actually happen in a moment. It can flip on a dime. The pre-work to it can take months, but the moment that she's ready, it can change like that. And when that happens, it's humbling. It is really humbling. And the places that we visit off the beaten path are perfectly designed for it. They are the ceremonial places, like you can see behind me. This one is quite well known. This is Uruk Stone Circle in on the Barra Peninsula, but there are other stone circles in that same valley that people never go to. Those are the thin places that still have energy, where we do these ceremonies, and where, with enough preparation, that transformation can be just ridiculous and very humbling as somebody who just sets the scene.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on today, Niels. It's been such a delight. And I'd like to thank everybody watching and listening, because this has been quite a rich episode. There are all sorts of strands here, which, if they resonated for you, maybe go and explore them more deeply. Check out Niels's site at adventuresinquietplaces.info. But, follow your nose, follow some of these threads, because some of it, who knows where it might take you, where the mysteries may emerge. And do check out my other episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. And if you like my vibe and my energy, and you think you might like to work with me, go to beingspace.world. So thank you again, Niels, so much for coming on the show.
It's been a pleasure, Catherine. Thank you for this.